Anyone who wants to build a successful career in finance and accounts often thinks about pursuing auditing as a profession. But what exactly is audit? Now, audit is an independent examination of the financial statements of an entity where this independent external third party goes through the financial statements, examines the financial statements and the books of accounts in detail, and then he gives an opinion on the financial statements as to whether they present a true and fair view, whether they are free from any material misstatements, and whether they are in compliance with the accounting standards and with the laws and regulations of that country. As opposed to what people think, the auditor's job is not to correct the financial statements. The auditor's only job is to express an opinion on the financial statements. And why is it so important? The shareholders of the company are the de facto owners. But naturally, all 1 lakh, 2 lakh, whatever number of shareholders are there, all of them cannot participate in the day-to-day management of the company, right? It's so difficult to bring so many people in a room and get all of them to agree on something and push some agenda of the company. That's impossible, which is why what shareholders do is that they appoint people to run the company on their behalf. These people are known as the directors. The money belongs to the shareholders. The directors are using that money to run the company. At the end of the year, naturally, the shareholders who have given their money to the company would want a report on how their funds were used, what is the financial position, how much revenue, how much profit, what is the expenditure, what are the liabilities. They would want a report on all of that. It's like a report card. And the directors present this report to the shareholders in the form of financial statements of the company, which include your balance sheet, statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, statement of cash flow, statement of changes in equity, significant accounting policies, and notes to accounts. Now, what is the auditor's job? The auditor's job is to express an opinion on the financial statements and talk about three things. A, whether they present a true and fair view. B, if they are free from any material misstatements, and C, if they are in compliance with the accounting standards and the local laws and regulations. Let's talk about another term which you will see very often, and that is a bank overdraft. Now tell me something, if you have 15,000 rupees in your savings account, how much money can you withdraw from the account? Maximum 15,000. You cannot withdraw more than what you have, right? But business organizations often need funds on a regular basis to make payments to suppliers, to make payment of tax, to make payment of rent, and for all their daily day-to-day expenses. Now, it is not necessary that every single time they will have enough cash deposited in their bank account. In such case, what they do is they make a small request to the bank, and what is that request? That the bank should allow them to overdraw, that is, draw over and above the limit or over and above the balance in their current accounts. So if I have 40,000 in my current account and I have requested an overdraft facility, I can withdraw 60,000 or 70,000 from my account, make payments to my suppliers, creditors, whosoever, and when I get cash from my customers, I deposit money in that account and the bank overdraft keeps on getting settled. It is a short-term loan. You can think of it as a short-term loan that a person has received from a bank for running his business. Now, the overdraft is an unsecured loan and it is a loan that is repayable on demand, which means I have overdrawn 30,000 from the bank. But tomorrow, if the bank manager comes to me and says, Satyamedh, return the 30,000 rupees right now, I have to repay the money immediately and I cannot wait or I cannot ask for more time, which is why your bank overdraft is always shown under current liabilities in the balance sheet, never under long-term liabilities. Now, I'm sure you have heard of the term operating cycle. Now, what is operating cycle? An operating cycle basically denotes the duration which you will need in order for 1 rupee invested in the business to get circulated and come back to you. Now, say for example, I purchase inventory today and I purchase inventory worth 100 rupees. This is something I want to sell in the future. I have purchased a box of chocolates. Now, it takes me 10 days to sell the chocolates. So 10 days is the inventory holding period. The money is still blocked in inventory. On the 10th day, a customer comes and buys the chocolates from me, but this customer does not pay me the amount immediately. This customer takes another 15 days to pay the amount. So that is my average collection period. So on the 25th day is when I receive my entire amount that got blocked in inventory on day 1. So what is my cash operating cycle? My cash operating cycle is the time duration that I would take for 1 rupee that is blocked in the business to do a full round and come back to me. And how is cash operating cycle calculated? It is your inventory holding period plus your average collection period minus your average payment period. That is how you would calculate your cash operating cycle. The shorter the cash operating cycle, the better it is for the business. That indicates inventory holding period is shorter and you are also able to recover the amount from your customers in a shorter period of time. Let's understand a very important term called the net asset turnover. How is this net asset turnover calculated? Net asset turnover is basically total sales upon net assets. What are net assets? This is total assets minus all outside liabilities. This net asset turnover is a very important efficiency ratio. Say for example, the total sales of a business are 2 lakh and the total net assets are 20,000, which means the company is using 20,000 worth of net assets to generate 2 lakh worth of sales. So the net asset turnover is 10 times. But look at another company, say company B, which has a total sale of 2 lakh rupees, but its net assets are 10,000, which means using a net asset base of 10,000, the company is able to generate 2 lakh worth of sales. Compare the two companies. I'm sure you will agree with me when I say that the second company has been far more efficient in utilizing its net assets for generating sales for the business. And this ratio, that is the net asset turnover, is used as the base to decide which entity or which division is more efficient. Let's talk about an important parameter, which is inventory holding period. Now, what exactly is inventory holding period? It denotes the average amount of time that a business entity takes to convert the stock into sale. For example, I purchased goods worth 50 lakhs today. How many days do I need to convert this stock into sale? So the time duration between the date of purchase and the date of sale is known as my inventory holding period. The inventory holding period basically tells me the average duration of time for which a business entity holds on to a particular stock item. Now, the higher the inventory period would mean lower efficiency of the business. That means it has not been able to convert its inventory into sale. Let's talk about the average collection period. How is the average collection period calculated? It is debtors upon credit sales into 365. What does the average collection period indicate? The average amount of time that a business entity would take to collect cash from its customers. There's another term that we need to understand, which is the average payment period or payable days. How is average payment period calculated? It is basically creditors upon credit purchases into 365. When you don't have credit purchases available, you can use total purchases. If you don't have total purchases available, you can also use cost of sales. So creditors upon cost of sales into 365. That is how you would calculate payable days. And what does payable days help you to determine? It tells you the average duration of time that is required by the business entity to make payments to its suppliers. The longer the average payment period, that means you are taking a longer duration in order to make the payment to your suppliers. There is a term that people often get confused with, and the term is coupon rate. Now, what exactly is the coupon rate? Coupon rate is the rate which is printed on that particular debenture or on that particular preference share. So if I say that these are 8% debentures, that means the business entity is obligated to pay you interest at the rate of 8% of the nominal value or the face value of that particular bond or loan note or debenture. Coupon rate is the rate of interest which the company is obligated to pay on the face value. It is printed on the document. one very important term along with coupon rate that you need to understand is the nominal value or the face value. The nominal value or the face value again is the amount printed on the share certificate, that this share is worth 10 rupees each or this bond is worth 100 rupees each. That value which is printed on the face of the share certificate or on the face of the bond is known as your face value or nominal value. Now, I'm sure you have heard of a term called shares are traded at a premium. What does that mean? The issue price of the shares is more than the face value. So the face value of the share could be 10, but when these shares are issued at 100 rupees, the additional amount that you collect over and above the face value is called as your share premium or securities premium. And when these shares are issued at a price which is lower than the face value, we say that the shares have been issued at a discount. In India, the issue of shares at discount has been prohibited in the last 10 years. Earlier, it was allowed.